Today I'm going to be talking about the best and worst books of 2024 so far. Hi, my name's Stephanie. Welcome to my channel. There are a lot of recommendations for you, so please stick around. To be honest, compiling them all, I thought I actually read more this year. They've been a bit of a mix, all kind of quite different from each other, but I feel like they're very unexpected in that I did enjoy most of them, but we'll get to that later. I'll be loosely following the mid-year freakout tag questions to speak about the books that I've read so far this year. I'm also going to be including some of the questions that Katie Whitrock included in her tag and that I've seen quite a few people borrow the questions for this year. To be honest, I was picking and choosing which questions to answer because some I feel like don't apply to me. I don't know if you feel this way, but I mean, for example, like I don't really make a lot of reading goals because I don't want to disappoint myself when I don't reach them. I don't really have like character crushes. Like there's characters that I like, but I wouldn't necessarily consider I have a crush on them. Anyway, so let's get into it. So the first question is the best book I've read of 2024 so far, and that would have to be The Rachel Incident by Carolyn O'Donoghue. I haven't spoken about this book on this channel yet, I don't think, but I read this I think around March or April. I was like pretty blown away with how this book made me feel. Really not that complex, honestly. It's just about a girl named Rachel in her early 20s. She having a part-time job, studying at uni, trying to figure out what they're going to do for the rest of their life, and she meets this guy and they instantly click and she's like, I want to be this guy's best friend, and that's what they end up becoming, best friends. And it's kind of like that friendship that you have in your early 20s where you like love spending time with this person, but they kind of also inspire you to be a certain version of yourself that you want to be. So that's the relationship that Rachel and her friend James have. So Rachel has a professor, Dr. Byrne, and she's kind of a bit obsessed with him, and James hears about this and he just runs with it. He's like, yeah, awesome, okay, how are we gonna set you guys up? Like, let's make this happen. And there'd been rumors going around at the university that, you know, students had slept with him before. Like his wife currently was a previous student, so, you know, Rachel thought she was in with a chance. But it was kind of one of those schemes where she gone along with James but never really expected it to actually play out and actually happen. But then it ends up being that James, her friend, ends up getting on with this professor and everything like follows from there. On the surface it seems just like another lit fic, but it was very, very easy to read. But not only that, the way that the author's written Rachel, she was very reminiscent of myself as someone in their early 20s, like moving out of home and just like trying to struggle as an adult, like with not enough money or wanting to keep up with the culture of like going out and partying and things like that. Some of the lines written in this book felt like it was like drawn out of my own mind, and it kind of made me think about aspects, you know, being younger in your early 20s and you kind of reminisce and wish that you could experience that life again. It kind of like really distilled that into something that made it click in my mind as to why I think about those things. I just want to give you one of my favorite quotes. When something good happens to you at that age, you can't settle with the notion that it's a one-off. You want it to be the beginning of a tradition. And I really felt that. Like I felt like a lot in my early 20s there was things that I experienced that you can never like recreate that magic. No matter the same, you make everything, same people, do the same thing, like nothing will ever compare to that time. You're just trying to recreate something that will never be again what it was because you've already experienced it. Yeah, and I just love the story too. Everything. It was just a great book. The next question is best sequel you've read in 2024. I've only read one sequel, but this would have been my answer regardless. Lore Olympus Volume 2 by Rachel Smith. I love this series so much. I've spoken about it on my channel before in an earlier reading vlog if you want to check out. I just love the art style. Honestly, since I discovered graphic novels, I've always really wanted to get into them, but I never connected that well with the way that the story is told through this medium. I don't know if it's like to do with the art or just like the way story is told, like through both words and pictures. There's different graphic novels that I've tried to read, but I've never really like connected so much and thought it was like such an amazing read that I either wanted to keep continuing with this series or like honestly keep continuing with graphic novels in general. They never really hit me to my core the way that novels do, but this series has like kind of changed it all for me. It's just done so well. I love the art style, and I can't say that for any other graphic novel series I've read. It's like got different hues through it. I'll show you. So like one character will be one color, another character will be another, and they mix them together through the story, and it just makes for a beautiful experience to see with your eyes. And I think it helps that I like this color palette, like the blue, the pink, and then the mix of the two, like purples. Just love it. This is obviously volume 2. I don't want to spoil it too much. Basically, I mean, probably already heard about it, but Lore Olympus is the story of Hades and Persephone and, you know, its own reimagining of it. In this story, like Hades has been around for centuries and Persephone has kind of just been allowed to leave her capture, kind of, that her mum kind of kept her locked away for such a long time, but now she's been allowed to kind of go out on her own into the real world, and it's like all the trials and tribulations that goes along with that. There are all the other characters from Greek mythology in here as well, and they all play their little role, they all manipulate, they all twist the truth, they kind of sweet talk into getting what they want, but they're all kind of distinct characters. And now this being the second book, the first book was kind of setting everything up and I still really enjoyed it, but I feel like the second book get more of a deep dive into the personalities and their motives and everything like that. You just get to know the characters more and in turn like fall in love with them all. I mean, there's obviously characters that I hate, if you know, you know, but there's a lot of characters to love in here. Yeah, really well done, and I want to keep continuing on with the series. It's just very expensive to buy a whole book. So yeah, literally the best sequel I've read this year, if not the last few years. Like really, really good. The next question is new releases that I haven't read yet but want to, and these are actually recent purchases. The first is Butter by Asaki Yuzuki. This one, I just love the premise of it. It's about this woman who is in Tokyo detention house and she's been convicted of a string of murders, and they say that she seduced these men that have been killed through her delicious cooking. There's also a journalist involved for some reason, I don't know. I kind of just know that premise and I have heard amazing things about this, so I'm like really wanting to read it very, very soon, and I will be. The next book that I'm quite looking forward to read is Just for the Summer by Abby Jimenez, and I feel like everybody's been reading this lately. I don't know if it's like this surge of romance reading or if it was always there, I just didn't realize it, but you know, everyone wants to read romance right now, which I love. I really love, and I love that people are being critical of romance because, I mean, sometimes it can just be bad, and sometimes the tropes within the story, they're just not good sometimes. Like if it was real life, you'd kind of look at it and be like, no, like dump that guy. That's why, I don't know if you feel like this, but that's kind of why I feel like I hold romance to a different level of scrutiny, because if it was real life, I wouldn't agree with it. But if it's in the book and the characters agree with it, then I'm okay with it. It depends. It really, really depends. I just went on a silly tangent that probably didn't make sense, but whatever. I'm looking forward to this. So this book is about two people, Justin and Emma, and it says, for Justin, every woman he dates goes on to find their soulmate the second they break up, which is the same for Emma. Whoever she dates, they end up going and finding their soulmate. So they decide maybe if they date each other, it'll cancel it out. So then whoever they find next will be the one for them. And things go from there. I don't read a lot of romance, to be honest. Please let me know about you. Like, are you someone who reads romance or not really? I find that I read a lot of romance as a teenager in my early 20s, but lately I kind of like more gravitate towards fantasy and like less romance centered stories. So those two I'm really looking forward to reading this year. The next question is the most anticipated release for the second half of the year. I have two for this. The first one is X's and Foes by Amanda Woody. This book I talked about in my Pride Month TBR like recommendations. I read They Hate Each Other by the same author. It was amazing, like one of my favorite books. Like it's up there on my favorites shelf. Like I'm obsessed with that book so much, and I just have an amazing feeling about this book as well. It's about these two friends that they both have a crush on the same person. That is kind of all I need to know, because Amanda Woody will do their amazing magic and make an amazing story. I have full faith. The next book is Here We Go Again by Alison Cochrane, and I've read Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane. I have The Charm Principle or The Charm Offensive by Alison Cochrane as well, and I haven't read that yet. I heard great things. So this is Kiss Her Once for Me. This is the second book that Alison Cochrane released. I loved it so much. I kind of even want to reread it as like a comfort read, to be honest. Like it was just really cute, really fun. So the second female relationship centered story that Alison Cochrane is releasing soon is Here We Go Again. It's about two women who I think they were previously in a relationship, but then I think they hear about a professor of theirs that is like quite ill, so they decide to go on a road trip across the country with each other to go see this professor, and fun things go from there. I don't know if you ever get this, I kind of don't want to look too far ahead at new releases because I might get a bit overwhelmed with books that I want to buy and like read. I have so many that I need to read now that I don't want to get distracted by what's to come. I want to be focusing like what I have to read now, which is quite a lot. Anyway, so the biggest surprise that I read this year has to be Crave by Tracy Wolff. This I've seen around, but I haven't really paid much attention to the reviews, to be honest. I kind of felt like it was one of those series that was kind of like a romance series that are just so popular that everyone's reading, and I kind of wasn't interested. But then I found someone's review and I ended up reading it, and when it was talking about vampires, and I was like, okay, you have my attention now, because I love vampires. Like, Vampire Academy is like my origin story. I used to read in high school like a lot of like those adult steamy romance stories about like, you know, vampires and humans or like werewolves or whatever, all that kind of stuff. Like, it was not appropriate for me as a 14-15-year-old to be reading these stories, but I did and I loved them at that age. This story, Crave, it's kind of like the modern day Vampire Academy story. It's about this girl, her name is Grace. Her parents end up dying, so she goes to live with her cousin and her uncle in like Iceland or something. She goes to this really secluded academy full of these weird students that are just so odd towards her, really aggressive, like so weird. Turns out they're all kind of magical creatures. But I really love the way that this story treated it. You know, a lot of other stories in the similar vein, either everyone's in on it or whoever's not in on it kind of just dismisses everything that they see that's weird. You know, you see everything happening around them and you're like, why would you not realize that that's weird? Like, that's clearly weird. Why are you not questioning it? But this book does a really good job in that she's always like bugging the people around her, like, what the fuck just happened? Like, is that not weird? And then everyone's around her saying like, no, it's fine. Like, you're fine. She's kind of just like, okay, like, don't believe you, but whatever. I've confronted you and you've not said anything. So like, what else is there to say? Then it kind of goes from there. I don't want to spoil anything because ultimately this is like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. This is a 6-book series and they're hugely thick. And if you can see here on my shelf, like that's the rest of the series because they were available in Big W and I didn't want them to sell out, so I went and bought the whole thing, even though I'd read the first book. Anyway, that's just like a glimpse into my horrendous buying habits. But anyway, this series is really nice. I'm currently reading the second book, but I've kind of taken a long break from it. It's even thicker than this one, but I find it's like a little bit repetitive. Like Grace, the main character, will think something and then she'll say the exact same thing out loud. It's like a double up on conversation for the reader that's not needed. But the first book was really a surprise. Like, it felt like a fresh version of the fantasy vampire, werewolf, dragon, blah blah blah, whatever, which is hard to do because a lot of these kind of things exist right now. Yeah, I'm just surprised I never read or heard about it sooner. And it kind of really feels reminiscent of like Vampire Academy, everything like that, and kind of like makes me feel nostalgia for it too. Like, it feels like if I read this as a teenager, I would have been obsessed with this series as much as the other ones that I've mentioned. No, happy surprise. The next question is favorite new author. I'm going to say from the books that I read this year, my favorite new author is Alison Cochrane. I loved Kiss O Once For Me, as I mentioned, and I'm really looking forward to the next Alison Cochrane book. This next question is newest fictional crush, and I don't crush on people, like I said. Maybe the love interest from Kiss O Once For Me. She was pretty cool. She's a baker that rides a motorbike that listens to bad 2010s music over and over, and I love that. The next question is books that made me cry, and to be honest, I can't actually remember crying in any of the books that I've read. I think I cried in the Rachel incident, but I can't be sure. I don't know. I haven't cried in a while from a book. I cry all the time in TV shows and movies. That's not to say I can't. I definitely can cry. Just think has really made me cry. Book that made you happy. I'm gonna say all of these books made me happy because there's none that I really didn't like. At the time of reading them, I pretty much enjoyed reading them all. I don't know if you ever have this, but sometimes like when I kind of sit with a book and think about it for a while, sometimes my opinion can change, like for the better or for worse. I want to say though, the one that probably made me the happiest while reading it would be Lore Olympus. The most beautiful book you've received so far this year or bought? There's actually 2. that I really, really love. This one is on display right here. I've had it on display since I got it because it's so beautiful. It's called Fathom Folk by Eliza Chan, and look at the gold. Just look at everything about it, like the symmetry of the page, the color palette, the beautiful like evening sun or morning sun there, like the gold foiling, like just that's the spine, like nothing compares to this. I haven't read it yet because, to be honest, I don't want the story to then have a negative impact on the cover, because I feel like the cover has brought it up to like here in my eyes. Oh, there's mermaids on the cover. Oh my god, I just realized there's mermaids. If you've watched any video on my channel, I feel like you know I love mermaids. Why do I keep talking about this? I'm not like a mermaid fanatic. Like, if you look at my study, like, I don't have mermaids everywhere. I just love them, okay? I'm gonna put this masterpiece back here. I hope to read it soon, as I hope to read all my other books that I own that I haven't read. Also, another beautiful book that I've purchased this year is this beautiful book, The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. Love this cover. It's so cool. And I love the little creepy scorpion. I mean, the hand's a little bit weird, to be honest, but like the whole thing together, the gold chain along that they're holding, I don't know what it is. I just really love it. And I think it's just like the gold foiling thing too. Like, you can never go, like, literally a book has gold foiling, I'll probably love it. Yeah. Those books are beautiful. And I could talk all the time about beautiful books because, let's be honest, don't we buy books for the cover? I mean, most of the time, don't we buy books for the cover? And the next question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? All the books. My entire TBR, my whole unread collection of books. There's so many that I've started and not finished. Started Ballads of Songbirds and Snakes when it first came out like 3 or 4 years ago, and I've still not finished it. I started it and restarted it twice, and I need to get on that shit because I really want to watch the movie, but I want to have read the book first, and the movie's already out on streaming services and I haven't even read the book yet. I also want to read some books from my childhood. I want to reread them and see, like, reading them as an adult with a more critical eye, can I love them as much now as I did as a teenager? I want to just compare. And it probably might ruin these books for me, I am very aware of that, but my curiosity is just getting the best of me, and also I want to revisit these characters in these worlds. Like, I loved them for a reason, clearly. So these next questions are the questions that I collected from Katie's video. What books do you want to reread this year? I specifically want to reread Obsidian by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I remember it being like the first book that I read where I was like, oh, I loved it. I want to read more books from the same author. Like, I'd never specifically thought about an author before that I wanted to reread. I've seen people read the Lux series that Obsidian is the first book in recently, and they love them, and these are people that I do trust with their book opinions. I am actually going to be starting a series of like rereading childhood books or rereading books from the early 2000s, because back then I kind of read everything. Everything was 4 or 5 stuff for me. I never really read a bad book or one I considered a bad book, and I know this about myself. I mean, even my partner says, like, some of my favorite movies and series as I was a kid, they're actually not that good objectively. Like, they're actually objectively bad. Like, they have horrible ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. They're just not good. But for some reason I love them. So I want to kind of test that theory and see if these books that were my favorites as a child are different now. Next question is books I've been putting off, and literally all of them. I put off reading in general, and I don't know why. I think, like, I just don't want to be let down by a book, so I put off reading till the end because I want it to, like, live up to my expectations. So I'm trying to reframe it. The next question is series I would like to finish before the end of the year. Like I said, the Lux series, I really want to finish it. I feel like teenage me is really disappointed in the fact that I have not even finished the Lux series, a series I considered being my favorite at the time. So I need to finish that. Next question is, do you think you'll reach your reading goal, and are you going to change it? So what I've been doing the past couple of years is I've only set it to 24 books, and that's like 2 books a month, which is pretty achievable for me, because like usually I'll go through months of like reading no books to reading 4 books. So it kind of evens out, and it's just nice, a little bit of a nudge to get myself to read. Just an attention span thing, I guess. Yeah, I'm behind. 1, 2, 3, 4. This year so far I've read 7 books, which means that I am 5 books behind my reading challenge. So I've got 17 more books to read this year. Shit, seems like a lot. And any new goals for the rest of the year? I think stick to my TBR a little bit more, because usually when I stop the book I I never ever go back to it. And nothing wrong with DNFing, nothing wrong at all. But I think like sometimes I don't give it enough chance. Sometimes books have a bit of a lull and I kind of don't push past it a lot of the time. I'm gonna challenge myself to finish books this year. And that's the end of the questions. I'm gonna show you the books that I've read this year. These are the books that I've read this year. I hadn't mentioned Chlorine yet or Cemetery Boys, but I have reading vlogs of those. So if you've seen those, you know that I've read them. I mean, they're all good. That's what I mean. Like, all these books are varying degrees of good. Oh, it's getting really heavy. I'll hold them like this. So yeah, I hope some of you can relate in that you don't read many books. Like, all these people saying they've read like 70, 80 books, over 50 books even, over 30 books. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot of books. And I love that people read that much. I wish I could. Please let me know in the comments below if you've read any of these books. I would really love to know because I want to talk about them with people. My Instagram is below. To be honest, I've not been that active on there because YouTube is actually taking up a lot of my time, but trying to change it. Thank you so much for watching. Bye. Oh my god.